Welcome, everybody. We're so excited that you're here today to learn about our Recognition of Prior Learning program, a program that's already helped numerous students here in our faculty to get a head start on different programs that they're taking with us. So very excited to tell you about this. Prior to doing that, I'd first like to acknowledge that Dalhousie is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We're all treaty people. We'd also like to recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched this part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for 400 years. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here and show you guys a bit of a presentation. I ask that you please save your questions until the end of the presentation. We should have plenty of time at the end to talk about really any questions that you might have about anything that I mentioned in this. Or if you have specific questions about your specific prior learning, we can talk about those here, or I'm also going to share my email and also a link for you to set up meetings with me if you wish. So my name is Chris Stevens. I am the manager of our Recognition of Prior Learning program here in the Faculty of Open Learning and Career Development. We have been running this program for about a year and a half now, unofficially. We've kind of always done this in our faculty, but it's just been in the last year and a half where we've kind of formalized this process and made it widely available to all of our learners. So I'm just going to hide that because that's distracting me in this. Sorry. So you might be asking yourself, what is recognition of prior learning? Or as I'm going to refer to it the rest of this presentation as RPL, just to save myself the breath of having to say such a long name. RPL, also known as Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition, or PLAR, as you may have seen it at different schools or in different industries, is a process that allows students to apply to have us take a look at their prior learning and determine whether or not that's equal to what someone would learn in one of our courses. If this is the case, then we give you what's called advanced standing. Or what this actually means is just we give you credit for that course towards one of our credentials at our school. And so far, we have had many students apply with quite a variety of prior learning that they wanted us to take a look at and assess. That prior learning has been things that come from people's life experience, their job training, their volunteer work, different workshops that they've attended, coursework. So maybe they studied at another university or college or private training center, or like I said, a variety of other experiences where they've obtained some valuable prior learning. Page is not turning. Oh, there you go. So as I mentioned, this program has been running for about a year and a half. We started working on this a couple of years ago. And really the purpose of developing this program at Dalhousie University was to eliminate some of the barriers that prevent people from studying with us. And probably two of the most significant barriers people face when studying with us, or really at any post-secondary institution, is time and money, right? And if you are someone who already has a lot of great life experience, a lot of great prior learning, and you already know something that we teach in one of our programs, you shouldn't have to restudy that again. You shouldn't have to duplicate that learning, right? And if you have to duplicate that learning, it can be very costly as far as time goes and money. So this process eliminates that need for duplicating learning. Thus, it cuts down on the amount of money that you would have to spend and the amount of time that you'd have to spend to receive one of our credentials here at Dalhousie University. We also hope that this program will help to, facilitate lifelong learning in our students. So, once they get in, they take a course with us, that they'll want to continue studying later on in their lives, whether it's with us here at Dalhousie, at another school, on their own. It doesn't really matter, right? We're really just in the learning business, and we really hope that we can, really spark that desire to keep learning throughout people's lives. We also started this program because we think it is very important to validate the learning that takes place outside of a classroom, right? This is especially important for people that are, again, deciding whether or not to study with us at Dalhousie University. Most of the people that go through this RPL program or process are typically older learners, or what we consider to be mature learners. So, over 25, basically. And if you're someone who has not studied at a university before, or maybe it's been 10, 20, 30 years since you've studied at a university like Dalhousie, it can be, a bit intimidating or uncomfortable to return to school, So we think that by telling our learners that, what you have learned outside of the classroom in your work or life experience is just as important. It's just as equal to what you would learn in our programs. We're hoping that it'll give people a sense of comfort, a sense of confidence when they return to the classrooms here at Dalhousie. As you can notice at the bottom of this slide, we created this program in partnership with the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration with the Nova Scotia government. And we're working with them in this program because we both want to try to alleviate or reduce skill shortages in our labor market. At Dalhousie, we work with a lot of industry partners in many, many different fields and sectors. And one thing they tell us all the time is, they need more skilled workers. There's a real lack of skilled workers in so many different fields and in industries. So we're hoping that by helping people to get a head start in programs here at Dalhousie, that we can somehow contribute to eliminating the skill shortage. We can fill these positions, right? We can upskill the province, and we can be more productive. We can make our companies, our industries, and our total economy more productive. We also hope that this process helps newcomers integrate into our labor force in Nova Scotia. Whether you are someone who's coming from a different province or the United States or internationally, right? We want you to be able to move into the Nova Scotia labor force as easy as possible. We understand that so many people come here every day that have great experience. They've got amazing skills that we need so badly, but there's a real problem with getting those skills recognized. And unfortunately, that means that they can't enter a school like Dalhousie, or they can't get the job they want right away because they're not getting those credentials and that prior learning recognized. So we're hoping that this process can help with that as well. So for people that go through our RPL process, there's two main benefits that you can get from this. Number one is that someone can get advanced standing. And again, if you're someone who's just joined this webinar, advanced standing means credit. Basically, you get credit for courses. So you don't have to take those courses. You automatically get them. You can get advanced standing up to 50% of one of the certificates in our faculty. So if one of our programs has 6 total courses that you have to take, you can receive up to 3 of those through this process. So you can quickly see how that would cut down on the amount of time and money required to complete one of these courses. You can also receive direct admission into one of our advanced certificates based on your prior learning. So very important to note, and maybe you've already noticed this at the top of the screen here, in white, it says that currently this process is only applicable to programs in the Faculty of Open Learning and Career Development, right? So if you are here on this webinar and you are interested in getting advanced standing to an engineering degree or medical degree or law degree or something like that, unfortunately, at this time, this process does not apply to those faculties. That being said, we are working with other faculties right now to help them adopt a similar process. So we're hoping that maybe in a year or two that you may actually be able to apply through an RPL process to get credit in one of those degree programs. But right now, it only applies to programs in our faculty. So in our faculty, as I was mentioning, the second benefit here, you can get direct admission into one of our advanced certificates through this process. So in our faculty, we have programs where there are foundational certificates that you have to take before you go into an advanced certificate. If you can show us that your prior learning is equal to what you would learn in that foundational certificate, you can skip that. You can get an exemption and move right into one of our advanced certificates. So that's another great benefit of our RPL program. I think this is really applicable for our learners, especially who are coming from the police profession or fire profession, where we do have these foundational certificates and then we have advanced certificates as well. So what kind of learning can you apply to have us assess? Right? What types of learning are eligible here? So essentially for us, there are two types of learning that we look at and assess and provide advanced standing for. And as a result, there's actually two different applications that people can submit to receive advanced standing. We look at, number one, prior certified learning, and then we also look at prior experiential learning. And in the next couple of slides, I'm going to explain what those are and which ones are eligible to use to get advanced standing in one of our programs. So first of all, prior certified learning. Prior certified learning is learning that takes place, it's intentional learning, so it takes place in some sort of formal classroom setting, and it's offered by a professional training provider. So to better explain that, I've got some different examples here of prior certified learning. So this could include, if you're coming from the military, we can assess and provide advanced standing based on military training. Or commercial learning institutions. So maybe you studied at a private career college. Maybe you've taken training to become, for example, an emergency medical technician or a dental hygienist or something like that. We can assess that. If you have certificates from trade apprenticeships, we can look at those and assess those. If you've taken professional development courses or training at your current workplace, we know that a lot of companies, they do offer their employees professional development training. We can assess that and provide and determine if that's equivalent to what you would learn in our courses. If you have studied at another, community college or university, we can assess that as well and determine if your prior learning is equal to what you would learn in our courses. So lots of different types of certified learning that we can look at. And there's definitely more examples than what's listed on this slide. The other side of this is prior experiential learning. And this is learning that's less intentional, that takes place in maybe a non-formal or informal setting. So it's not like you're sitting down in a classroom, or it's not like you're sitting at your computer and taking an online course. This is learning that actually comes from experience. And in most cases, that's something that comes from your job, from your workplace. So different skills that you have learned from your work experience, different knowledge that you've gotten from your work experience. It could also include your volunteer work, could be committees that you've served on, You know, maybe you are on your condo board, for example, and you've been the accountant for your condo board. Maybe you don't have formal accounting training, but you've done that for a number of times. You've balanced the books, so to speak, for your condo committee. That type of learning, we can assess that and provide advanced standing. You know, maybe you've been the leader of a sports team. Maybe you've been a coach of of a different sport. Maybe you are an official, an umpire of sports. We can, again, look at those skills that you learned from that. And we can assess that and determine, is that something that's equal to what you would learn in our courses? On the other side, maybe it's even more informal. Maybe it's something you just learn from your peers. Maybe you love to read and you're really keen on reading about a certain topic, and maybe you've basically made yourself an expert in that topic from your own personal reading. We can assess that. Could be skills that you obtain from everyday life, like creating a family budget. People don't realize that, to create a family budget and to manage a family budget, you have to do things like forecasting, accounting, lots of interesting decision making or problem solving, lots of different skills there in creating that family budget. Maybe you've learned to use technology. We do have technology courses in our faculty. Maybe you've already learned, some of the beginning steps of how to code, for example. If you can show us that in your application, we can provide you credit for that. And I mentioned reading as well. If you do go through this application, the prior experienced learning application, you are required to complete what we call a learning portfolio. This is basically a collection of different documents and writing that show that you have the equal prior learning from your experience to what you would learn in our courses. If you are interested in applying through this process and using experiential learning, I can help you through that process. I can help you to create these learning portfolios. I can help you to, maybe it's hard for you to identify the skills that you've gotten from your work experience. I can help you to do that as well. So who should apply to this process? If you are an adult learner who has significant, learning from your work and life experience that you think might be equal to what you learn in our courses, you should apply. If you have completed prior coursework at a different college, university, or within your companies or industries, you should apply to this. Those are really two excellent, scenarios to go through this process. How do you apply? So the first step that we always recommend to anyone that's interested in going through this process is that they speak to me first, right? That way I can, number one, I can advise you on which application. Should you be applying through the recognition of certified learning application, or should you be applying through the recognition of experiential learning application? Maybe you have both. Maybe you have prior certified learning and experience that you want to apply. I can guide you to the right application. And I can also give you a good sense. I have a pretty good understanding from working very closely with our program teams and gaining a strong understanding of the programs that we offer, that if your prior learning is going to be eligible, right? I can give you that, I guess, preliminary advice on whether or not this is a good process for you to continue forward with or not. So let's say you talk to me and I say, yes, I think you're going to be a great candidate to go through this process. The next step for completing a recognition of prior learning or RPL application is to create a Destiny 1 account. This is kind of our student management system. It is very, very easy to do this. It only takes probably 2 or 3 minutes for you to do this, to enter a bit of personal information, your name, address, email, that kind of stuff. And then that's it. You've got a Destiny 1 account. Once you've done that, then you can choose the appropriate RPL application for yourself. You can complete your application. Everything is done online. So there's nothing that you need to send in the mail to me. Everything can be done there. You can fill out all of the information in your application, and you can submit online any required documents right there. So there's no need to send anything to me. We make this as quick and easy as possible for you and for us as possible. Lastly, there is a $175 assessment fee for this process. That $175 covers all of the courses on your RPL application. So as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, that you can apply to receive advanced standing in up to 50% of the courses in a certificate. So you might have 2 or 3 or 4 courses on that application, right? And you don't have to pay an assessment fee for each of those, just one assessment fee. Now, I know $175 it's not nothing, right? I understand the value of $1 as much as anyone here. You know, things are super expensive now. Inflation's expensive, gas is expensive, food is expensive, everything is expensive. So $175 is not nothing. But when you compare this to the amount of money you could be saving on these courses, on each of these courses, especially if you are given credit or advanced standing for, 2, 3, 4 courses, that is a significant amount of money that is being saved, as well as time So yes, we understand it's not free, and $175 is not nothing. We do feel this is a great value for people that go through this process. So how are these RPL applications assessed? So first of all, one thing you should know, I am not the one who makes the final decision on your application, right? Again, I can help you with providing advice, and I can give you my opinion on whether or not you have a very good case to get advanced standing in our core certificates, but I'm not the one who ultimately decides this. What we do is I receive an application, and then I'll pass it along to a subject matter expert. So subject matter expert is someone who either works in this industry, whatever industry you're interested in. So let's say you wanted to take one of our business courses, right? The person that looks at your application would be someone who, has worked in this profession for a long time. Most likely, they're also someone who teaches our courses on business or whatever field it is as well. So they are the ones who will make those final decisions. They're the ones who will compare your prior learning to our courses to see if they're equal, right? So like I said, they're trying to identify how closely they match. So they're looking at the topics taught in our courses, the skills people that learn in our courses, the knowledge that they learn in our courses. And if that's, again, equal or almost equal, I shouldn't say it doesn't have to be perfectly equal. That's another important thing to say to you, right? It's impossible for someone to have exactly the same knowledge as what they get in our courses. We've learned that. But if you are close enough, if you've learned the majority of what you would learn in our courses, you could receive advanced standing or credit for one of our courses. After you have submitted your application, it is possible that I will contact you and say, hey, can you provide us with a little bit more information about this? Is there any more documents that you have on this? Or it may also be possible that we may ask you to, complete an assignment, complete a test or exam, have an interview with our subject matter experts. It is possible. We haven't had to do that very often, but it does happen rarely that you might have to have another type of assessment. Finally, after we receive your assessment, your application, it typically takes us about 4 weeks to complete this. Sometimes we can do this quicker, depending on how complex your application is. Rarely it takes longer than 4 weeks. Usually it's around 3 to 4 weeks that we can complete this assessment and communicate the results of this assessment to you. Because we understand that, most times when people they complete these applications, they want to start studying with us as soon as possible. So we want to make that possible. So we try to get this process done as quick as we can. So who can you talk to receive additional information about this? That's me. There's my picture. I hate looking at pictures of myself, so I'll just cover that with my hands. Below that is my email address. Very, very simple, rpl@dal.ca. Below this, you have a Calendly link. If you want to quickly jot that down, if you click on this, you can set up a quick meeting with me. It's automatically synced with my calendar. So whatever works for you during my schedule works for me. So we can set up a meeting to talk about anything that we've talked about today. We can talk about your individual case, your prior learning, no problem. Other things that I can help you with, if you have any questions about our certificates in our faculty, I can give you some information about those, or I can point you in the right direction of someone who can answer any question you have about our certificate programs. As I mentioned, I can give you a quick assessment of whether or not your prior learning is going to be eligible. I can help you in completing your RPL application, or if you do go through that recognition of experiential learning application stream, I can help you create a learning portfolio. I can send you a sample portfolio. We have a handbook that you can follow that lays down the steps to make it easy as possible to complete that learning portfolio. Also, one thing important to note, that if you do submit an RPL application and you are not satisfied with the results, there is an appeal process that you can go through. So I can help you through that process as well to appeal your decision and perhaps get the results overturned, and maybe you can get that advanced standing or credit that you initially wanted. So this is a very, very quick run through of our recognition of prior learning program. At this point, if you have any questions at all, I would love to answer those questions. You can write your question in the chat and I'll respond to you on this video or this call. Or if you want to unmute yourself and just ask a question right away, you can do that and I'll answer your questions that way as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and open this up to any chats you might have. So, any questions? Big or small, I'm here to answer them. I don't see any in the chat that I might have missed, but great. Thanks for your question, Mike. Mike's question, if you haven't seen it in the chat, is does the $175 fee get offset from the tuition fees if your application is denied? Unfortunately, currently at this time, we don't have that option. So unfortunately, if you do not receive advanced standing for your prior learning that's listed in your application, that $175 is non-refundable and can't be applied to your your program or your course study with us. So sorry about that. Again, one way we try to eliminate that from happening, from people losing their money, is that initial discussion with me. You know, if I have a chance to look at your prior learning before you apply, I can usually give you a pretty good sense of what the results might be. It's not guaranteed, but through this process, we've only actually had a few people not get what they've been asking for out of the many applications that have been submitted. So we think that the process we have in place, that initial chat, kind of cuts down on that. Stanley is asking, is the $175 all the money you have to pay? That's all you have to pay for this RPL assessment, right? If you are given credit for one of our courses, you don't have to pay tuition for that course. You would only have to pay the tuition cost for the courses that you actually take. So if you take a certificate that has 4 courses and you receive 2 of them through this process, RPL process, you would only have to pay the tuition cost for those final 2 courses that you need to take. John is asking, can you only apply for one stream of recognition of prior learning, prior certified learning, or prior experiential learning? So that is a great question, because we do have people that come to us that have both forms of prior learning. And in those cases, I would usually what I do recommend people do is that they complete the prior certified learning application only. And in that prior certified application, there is a section at the bottom of the online application where you can include additional supporting information or documents. And in that case, that I usually tell people, okay, give us all your certified learning, but in that section, provide us with information about your experiential learning. And that way we'll consider both of them together when we're looking at your application. Okay. Matea is asking, or is asking us, and this is another great question. Thank you for asking. I'm interested in the certificate in adult education. I may have seen in the slides that it does not apply to RPL. Is that correct? If you are interested in the certificate in adult education that we offer here in our faculty, then it is absolutely, it does apply to the RPL program. So we have actually had numerous students apply to get advanced standing in that program based on their prior learning. So yes, it does apply. So if you are, interested in taking that and you have great, prior learning that you think is equal to what you would learn in the courses in that certificate, then I highly recommend that you apply through this process, because you can receive advanced standing in that certificate. Right. This program, it applies to almost every one of the certificates that we do offer in our faculty. There are a couple that are not applicable. And, when you contact me initially, I can tell you that right off the bat, if it is one of those few that does not apply to this program. Thank you for your question. Looking back at the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. Any other questions? If you don't have any other questions, I'll just give you the kind of my closing remarks here. First of all, thank you so much for attending this webinar. We are recording this webinar, and so I will send out the link to each of you who are attending this. I know I quickly went over a lot of different stuff about the RPL process. So we will send out a link. We're also sending out that link to the people that registered that could not make it today. Feel free to share this link with anyone you think that may be interested in, getting that head start or getting on the fast track to getting a credential with us. So thank you again. If you don't have any other questions, feel free to exit the webinar at this point. If you do still have questions, I'll be here as long as, the questions keep coming in to answer your questions. If you do have questions that come up after this webinar, please feel free to email me. As I mentioned, my email address, which I'm just putting in the chat right now, very simple, is rpl@dal.ca. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have about this process. I do see another question in our chat. It says, Mike is asking, for certified learning, is there a timeline when the certificate was received? I went to university 20 years ago and received my degree then. That is a very good question as well. So when you do go through the application process, you will see something that says, normally we only look at learning has happened within the last 10 years. But, big but, there is a but to this, or an exception to this. We will, that 10-year limit is really kind of just a suggestion. If what you have learned, whether it's 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or more, is still relevant and it's still current, and it's still, the same as what you would learn in our courses today, then we will take a look at it. We will assess it. Normally, what we do in those cases, though, is we'll ask someone to tell us, how they've used what they learned 10, 15, 20 years ago in their professional careers since then. Because we want people to show that they're still using it, they're still fresh in what they do, it's still impactful. We don't want, we can't give advanced standing to someone who learned something 20 years ago and then has never used it since. They've forgotten about it, right? We want it to be something that's still current, that they use on a daily basis to show that, that it's still knowledge that's helping them in their daily lives. So the answer to that question is yes, we will still look at it. We normally recommend 10 years, but if it's longer than that, we do look at it. We might ask you for a little more information about that, about how you're using it, but we definitely can still look at prior learning that's outside of that 10-year limit. Are there any other questions that you might have about this? If you have a specific question about your prior learning or a particular certificate that you're interested in, or any other question about this application process, please, I'm here to answer any question you have. One thing people may be wondering, and maybe I should include this actually in my presentation next time, you don't have to be here in Nova Scotia to go through this process. As you may have seen, most, if not all, of our certificates are now online. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country or really in the world. You can take our programs and you can go through this RPL process. Trevor, you're welcome, and I look forward to speaking with you more about this and your prior learning and anything else you might want to talk about. Seems like perhaps just as I was about to say, there's no more questions. We've got another question. Great question, Mike, again. I guess English is maybe one of those programs. Of course, our language evolves every day, but it's quite possible that what you've learned 20 years ago in an English program about particularly around writing could definitely be applicable to what you learn in our writing courses right now. Obviously, like I said, things have changed with our language, but a lot of those foundational knowledge is still applicable. Really, it's really hard to answer that question though completely, Mike, without having a chance to speak with you more specifically about how you use your writing skills on a daily basis. And one thing that I always recommend to anyone that's interested in going through this process is that they look very closely at the courses online in each of our certificates. So if you went and you looked at the 4 courses in the technical writing certificate, and really look at the topics that are covered and the learning outcomes from each of those courses. And if you think that, yes, for example, I think one of the courses in that certificate is called the grammar tune-up. If you are a grammar whiz and you are your grammar, you can write perfect writing without having any grammar issues or punctuation issues. If you have a solid grasp of grammar, then there's a strong chance that you could to get advanced standing. But again, the important thing is here you have to demonstrate. So again, you'd have to tell us how you use writing on a daily basis or in your professional career, and for example, how it's got to be, if you're a professional writer, it's got to be flawless pretty much. So it's a tough question. I think perhaps the best scenario would be, or the best way for me to answer that would be, if you were to provide me more specific details about your past coursework and your experience, then I might be able to better suited to answer that question for you. John asks, if I schedule a meeting with you, do I need to have everything uploaded prior to the meeting? No, you definitely don't have to. We can chat with or without the, having documents submitted. And you don't even have to start the application process. You can just have a conversation with me prior to even beginning this, right? Because we don't want you to spend a long time completing it. Actually, I shouldn't say a long time, because it doesn't take that long to complete an application, but we don't want you to waste time completing it, starting it on an application if this isn't for you. Sounds good, Mike. I will look forward to hearing from you about setting up a time to speak about this. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll call it a wrap, and thank you again so much for attending this webinar. Really, this is really a great opportunity for anybody that's interested in getting a head start, whether it's you or anyone we really appreciate you attending this and passing along this information to anyone who might be interested in studying with us. Again, my email is rpl@dal.ca. I would love to speak with each of you more about this, about any questions that you might have, and I'm here to help in any way I can to get your RPL application process started. So thank you again. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. So thank you. Bye.